you. This is a conversation that many of us that are residents or professionals within the city have been having for many, many, many years. And as former Mayor Nancy Graham pointed out, well, yes, we've come a long way. Success does breed its own unique challenges. As an example, where we are today, the convention center could release at any given time 1,000 people for lunch that in one big pulse need to cross Okeechobee Boulevard to get to lunch. That is a unique condition. That's different than other uses on the corridor. It's a different condition than City Place South Tower, where you have hundreds of residents that live there that at their own pace, with children, with bicycles, with elderly parents, need to make that pilgrimage too. So, you know, one size fits all is not going to work, we think, for Okeechobee Boulevard. We've heard about external factors. We've heard about, you know, transit, not just mobility within the downtown, but also how transit and mobility outside of downtown, outside of the city limits, can actually impact and be part of the solution. So, over the years, and this morning, we've all heard many different ideas. We've heard many different challenges. This next panel, what we hope to do is touch on, number one, how some other cities have addressed similar challenges, but then also with the direction of Michael Buscia and Palm Beach County Administrator Virginia Baker, start to talk about how maybe alliances with all of the different agencies that we've heard about. It's not just the city and the town and the county, it's the Coast Guard, it's the transit providers. So how can we, as a large team, try to address all of these different issues? So for this last panel, I'd like to introduce Juan Mullarat, who's a designer with over 15 years experience in design with several highly respected firms. Born in Barcelona, Juan studied in England and the US, completing his dual master's degree in architecture and urban design at the University of Miami. Juan is a guest lecturer in a number of universities. He is the principal and founder of his firm Plus Urbia. His work strives to create and capture the essence of places that transcend trends and value culture. I'm, of course, honored and privileged to introduce my boss, Executive Director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, Michael Buscia, who spent the last 35 years of his career with the Regional Planning Council and the last 22 as its Executive Director. Michael's spoken from coast to coast on the importance of thinking regionally on topics related to downtown redevelopment, disaster preparedness, job creation, economic development, and of course, urban planning and design. Michael also serves as the president of the Treasure Coast Enterprise Fund, and continues to be a recovering school board member who served from 2010 to 2014 for Martin County. And it is our distinct privilege to have Ms. Baker, our county administrator, here. As a certified government financial planner, Virginia is responsible for the management of activities necessary to ensure the efficient and effective operation of county government. With a budget of approximately $4 billion and 6,300 employees and a population of 1.3 million people. That's no small job. In 1987, Virginia began her career with Palm Beach County as a budget analyst, and she was then promoted to impact fee coordinator and eventually became the division director of the county's financial management department. So Ms. Baker has been through the ranks and understands the different levels of responsibilities and tasks that her staff has to implement. Her experience as a financial manager was a prelude to her current day responsibilities as county administrator. Virginia lives in Royal Palm Beach with her husband Joe and her daughter Jasmine. Thank you so much for being here. As I mentioned earlier, this last panel discussion, by the way, I just wanted to point out that when we're done here, after this discussion, I want to make clear that there is going to be time for an open question and answer period. Like I said, we'll try to parse through the comment cards you've gotten. Those will all be part of probably a website or some form of public record available in the future. But we will have question and answers afterwards. And for those of our panelists that are still here, if you could join us on the stage afterwards so we have the full thrust of our panel to answer the question, the full brain power, that would be great. So, Juan, you've listen, this morning we've talked at length about, you know, the idea that there's, rather than shrink the toolbox that's available to us as residents and designers and planners, etc., we need to grow that toolbox and try to understand what approaches are appropriate for the city of West Palm Beach and for the unique conditions we have here. So with that, if you wouldn't mind going through your presentation.
My slides, and thank you for having me. I have the privilege and I guess that everybody else in the panel should be a little jealous. I'm the outsider, so I have the ability to see things from the outside perspective, which gives me a little bit of an edge on this presentation. So I'll show you some of the work that is being done across the world, and some of the work that we have done, some of the work that we know would be ideal for Palm Beach, for West Palm Beach rather. See, I am the outsider. I still call it Palm Beach. It's important to consider that complete streets and complete solutions are nothing if the whole district doesn't work. So I wanted to put this slide out, and it's really in reference to what the mayor was saying. She showed a picture of 1987. I'm showing you a picture of the turn of the century. And the people that founded the town already had in mind, you know, what is public and what is private. And you have an incredible network at play here that has been developed over the years, and you're facing really interesting challenges ahead. And so every time that these challenges come to play, especially now, you need to consider how is the city, how are we going to evolve with the city and with these challenges that are coming. And some of them are challenges, but rather I think that they're more opportunities. And the opportunities such as, and I'll touch on it real quick, Okeechobee Boulevard. I think it's more an opportunity, even though most people might see it as a real challenge because of its width. So the city is put together basically but through private and public land. And it's the symbiosis, it's how symbiotic these two are together that, that produces a good or a bad place. You can't look at a street without looking at the land uses. You can't look at the land uses without seeing how the street serves them. And what you have in Okeechobee is two parallel beings that are not really talking to each other. I'll show you more in a minute. So, as I said, zoning and street zoning, what we call street zoning. So, is it a boulevard, is it a street? And I'll throw something out there which some of my colleagues, we're having discussions with some of our colleagues. It's not really about, complete streets is not really about having everybody on the street at all times. Complete streets is having a street that is contextual to the surroundings. So you wouldn't have a car in parkland, and you wouldn't have a pedestrian in a highway. Imagine walking down 95, that doesn't make sense. So each street to each user, and each user to its street. And if you are able to build these streets and these alleys and these boulevards the way that they're supposed to, together with the land use that should play in parallel to it, then you're going to have a successful city. Next. And that's what we're doing. This is a project that we completed in Hialeah, where we implemented our complete districts theories, and it's a really good testing ground. I don't know if many of you have been to Hialeah. They are really jealous of you. You've got a lot going for yourselves. But like Dana was saying when he was introducing me, I'm from Barcelona, and many people ask me, what am I doing here? What the hell are you doing? I'm here because this is the land of opportunity, and for a planner, this is heaven, right? In Barcelona, a lot of the things are already done. I studied in London. You know, this is where it really is at, right? I mean, Brightline coming to town, you know, pedestrian, boulevards like Okeechobee. What can we do for a planner? This is like playing with Legos here. So in playing with Legos, we also play, and excuse the language, but play with the user. So we play with the pedestrians, we play with the cyclists. We see how it all comes together. And like I said, a complete district is not necessarily all streets, all users in all places. It's the right way of building that infrastructure that really creates a successful place. Next. So we use that, and we look at the realm, for instance, in this scenario that I'm showing you here, is where the pedestrians go, and we pull that out, and we analyze how the pedestrians are moving around a street. And that's something that you're going to have to do in Okeechobee. And you're going to have to see where that friction happens. Where is the friction between the pedestrians and the cars? How can we reduce the vehicles on the road? Is it about introducing more ways to get from A to B? Because A to B at some point is going to be clogged. Doesn't matter how many lanes you put in there, it's going to get clogged. So you need to provide more options. So think of streets as a means, yes, to get from A to B, but there's many other ways to get from A to B. And the more options that you give as planners and as citizens and as leaders of the community, the better the whole network is going to function. This is again an example of how we code it. So think of this as zoning for streets, which is something that not many people think about, but it is very important. Everybody's familiar with Okeechobee. It is a daunting street. Hit next. And when you start analyzing it, you realize that you've got 7% for pedestrians and 55% for cars right now. So it's not much of a boulevard. In fact, the element that is happiest in Okeechobee is the grass. You've got 38% of grass and nobody steps on it. And I think I have it this morning. It is, you know, the grass is always greener on the other side. Well, no, actually the grass is always greener in the middle where nobody steps on it. And so as daunting as this may be, you've got a very large corridor. It is very daunting, and if you look at the way that is laid out, you've got 5-foot sidewalk on one side, about 5 to 10 to 15 maybe in front of the convention center, but really these turning radiuses, man. I mean, even from Barcelona, I'm like, you know, I had to blink twice to really, you know, look at the way that these cars are flying through here. So again, context to solution. What do you want here? Because right now, what you're going to get is speed and traffic. So are you designing for speed and traffic, or are you designing for a pedestrian, bicycle, Segway, whatever future technology comes to us, which every day surprises me? What is it that we're designing for? You have in Barcelona, for instance, a 310-foot example. This is the Diagonal. This is the street, if some of you have been to Barcelona. This is a street that is much larger than yours, and it functions incredibly well. But the way that it functions, it has 13 lanes, and unfortunately I don't have my notes in here, so I'm not going to be able to tell you the exact dimensions. But it basically has 23% for pedestrians, 5% for bicycles, 19% for dedicated transit, and 29% for vehicles, and 24% for grass. The grass is also happy here, but what you've got here, if you look at the percentages, you've got a much more equivalent or much more balanced percentage between pedestrians and cars. And like the director of FDOT was saying this morning, they are moving people. And in fact, South Florida is one of the best, most progressive DOTs in the country in terms of turning these large boulevards, these large right-of-ways into friendlier streets. And so these are examples. It's not that daunting. I'll show you another one that is pretty famous, Champs-Élysées in Paris. That's 230, more similar to yours. You've got about 200 to 210. This has 11 lanes. Again, this has 11 lanes, and it's very pedestrian friendly. And it's a much simpler right-of-way. It's 60% for pedestrians and 40% for cars, and zero grass. The grass is not happy. But it is an urban condition, right? So you don't really need the grass. And how do you cross these things? You've got other possibilities. You can do pedestrian bridges. You've seen pedestrian bridges all over the place. In fact, this one's one from Florida. You have the ability to cross on grade, which is the best in terms of local businesses. But in right-of-ways, this is why planners and engineers typically consider other options. So it might be a multi-pronged solution where you'll be allowed to move from one side to the next. And that pedestrian bridge can also become something iconic, something that you currently don't have. When am I in downtown? When have I arrived? Well, this is the Arc de Triomphe, and yeah, it's not a pedestrian crossing, but does make the case as you're looking down toward it. It's a sense of arrival, and there's millions of solutions out there. You know, I know the city is known for its Mediterranean architecture. I'm sure you can create something old, something new, something in between, but something that says, I'm in downtown, I arrived, right? This is West Palm Beach. Again, other solutions. This one in Shanghai. This one's a glorified traffic circle for pedestrians. Again, not very friendly for the businesses down on the ground, but still a solution that could be considered. And some have even, I heard Dana told me this morning that some have even floated the idea of cut and fill, to doing a tunnel. There's solutions out there that look at more than one option. In this case, in Barcelona again, 250 feet wide, they do a cut and cover, which is the tunneling of the vehicles. You'll notice though that they still have local access for vehicles on the side, so it's not that they take all the cars out. And then they have a pedestrian crossing, and they have a roundabout. You know, they went for it all here. This is an example of what could happen in Okeechobee Boulevard. And this is the way that it looks in Barcelona. This is not one of my favorite streets in Barcelona. Some of you may have been here. At the bottom of the page, you see that it has about 60% of pedestrians in the center, and then local sidewalks on the side, similar to what you have minus the grass. And again, it's something that you might not want to consider just for Okeechobee, but as a solution that is wholesome for the whole town. You've got Brightline coming in, you've got the trolley, you need to connect the neighborhoods right now. There's barely any connections to the neighborhoods, and I think that the crossing of Okeechobee is probably the most challenging, as well as the crossing to the Tri-Rail station. And the traffic that generates going down into Okeechobee and over to the downtown might make you consider opening some of these streets or connecting some of these streets like Fern, that lies roughly in the middle of it. So again, the opportunities that are coming to town are incredible. And as I guess Miamian, I am a little jealous of you. I live right next to downtown, and to be honest, the amount of transportation opportunities that you're going to have is outstanding. And it's just a matter of time until you find the right solutions. And mind you, I'm saying solutions. There's not going to be one solution for your transportation needs. And by transportation, again, I don't mean just cars or vehicles, but also pedestrian. You need to find a safe way to complete your district. And complete your district for all users, not just the cars, not just something that allows everybody to live happily ever after, if you mind my saying. Because at the end of the day, it is the last mile that really counts. It's that last experience that you have before you get to transit. How do you get to transit, and how do you get to your place, your destination from transit? That's what's really going to make or break your downtown. And that's made with pedestrian access and with vehicle access. And the more complete you make it, the less you're going to have, if you note on the diagrams at the bottom, the cost of transportation to a household. And currently, auto-dependent exurbs in the United States account for 25% of the cost of living. So transportation is very, very expensive. And the more that you provide options, the better you're going to be throughout. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. Michael Busha? Mr. Busha?
Michael's fine.
If you would speak to us for a moment about Tomorrowland and where we're going next.
Yeah, sure. I was going to share with you one short story that shares a lot of the parallels that you're struggling with right now and how it was solved, and then also a shameless plug for the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. But seeing Nancy Graham here in her talk, I'm going to share one more quick short story with you. So two short stories and one shameless plug. I remember the first time that Mayor Graham called the Regional Planning Council in 1993-94. She asked us to come down and go down Clematis Street and tour the city and things like that. This was like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we wondered where everybody was, number one. And number two, we wondered why these kids were throwing rocks at our cars on Clematis Street. And we didn't care too much because it was an old blue Taurus. So we needed a new one anyways at the council. But, so what I want to tell you is that extraordinary things happen under great leadership. It happened during the Renaissance, during the charrettes of 95, 96, in the master plan. There was a sort of a magic place that was created where the county, the town, DOT, the city, everybody was talking to each other, and they all sort of shared this enthusiasm and imagination about what downtown could be, and it just can't be that way anymore. And the neighborhoods too. They were all swept up in this. And somehow we need to kind of get back to that place. Because I remember talking about Okeechobee Boulevard 20 years ago. And this was right after the shredding. And oh, we're going to be so successful. The road's not working right. How do we cross it? New lanes were added. How are we going to cross it? And we never really answered those questions in any big way. A lot of low-hanging fruit. A lot of small gestures were done that made life a little easier for us, but there was always something missing, preventing us from doing this comprehensive, big idea, big imagination solution to Okeechobee Boulevard. And I want to talk to you a little bit about more than that, because it's much more than just crossing Okeechobee Boulevard. Now, I know Virginia doesn't want any of our conventioneers to be squished while they're crossing, because that would spell the end of conventioning in West Palm Beach. But there's many other users of Okeechobee Boulevard. There's many other pieces of the puzzle outside the city of West Palm, includes the town of Palm Beach, includes west of here, how people get in and out. You all know this. The neighborhoods to the north, how you reconnect them. How do you even reconnect 45th Street, the new stadium that the county put all this money into without the transit? Because you're going to need it eventually as that becomes more popular, more highly used. And about the towns along the way, like Mangonia Park and Riviera Beach. So I want you to think, while I'm talking to you about this little story, about those things too. It's not just Okeechobee Boulevard, although I agree that's a challenge that has to be, or I call it an opportunity that has to be embraced. Two things that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, or all RPCs do, regional planning councils do, but two things that the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council does amazingly well. And we're known for this statewide. And so you know who I work for. I thought, you know, Nick has a lot of bosses that he has to work with. I have 28 bosses, local elected officials, appointments from the governor, ex officios. And we meet once a month to talk about all kinds of things. But the strength of the regional planning councils are, and by the way, Treasure Coast is Palm Beach, Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River counties. So from the Sebastian Inlet to Boca Raton Inlet. You can imagine the host of challenges and opportunities we see. And one of their strengths is their ability to look down the road, over the fence, around the corner, and sort of sniff out these opportunities in a big way and bring people together. The second strength is their ability to really unify communities, bring people together for some sort of, and find some opportunities and build some consensus about solutions, big ideas, and then find the money to do it. Okay, so those are the two big things that my bosses are looking for the Regional Planning Council to do in a big way so that they are useful, that they are relevant, so that they can help in situations just like you're facing right now, and where they've helped everywhere from Homestead up to Flagler Beach where we've worked, and over to Bartow. So I want to tell you this story, quick story, and there's many parallels here, so if you see any, just don't jump up and tell me what they are, you can tell me later. But the mission of the story, or the mission, sort of the theme of the story was there was two agencies that were trying, more than two, actually 8 agencies that were all trying to see how they could figure out how they could meet a Brightline schedule and get the Tri-Rail over, at least some of the trains, over to the FEC, or the Tri-Rail Coastal Link. We know it now as that. It wasn't known as that when we started working on this a few years ago. Now, things didn't start out very well. The story it was bumpy. Again, the mission is mobility, just like here in the city. There was political intrigue going on. There were were secret meetings in Tallahassee. There was talk of hostile takeovers of agencies because we really wanted to get this done, and these guys aren't working with us, and we got to just go around them. There was also partnerships and relationships that were in the ditch. I mean, there was literally hatred among the agencies, not all of them, some of them, and some personnel inside. So we're never going to get anything done as long as we had this. There were issues that were incredibly complex, and they were all intertwined. Can you imagine how, and if you don't know the difficulty in making sure that the tri-rail had the right size trains, the right track, the right elevation to plug into Miami and the FEC Brightline was incredibly hard. And they were under a short fuse because, look, the private sector wasn't going to wait for us. We had to figure this out fast. And then you had every agency, every local government who was involved. They all had their own priorities, and they figured if they could finish one of their priorities, then they were finished. They didn't have to worry about the rest of it. So there was some selfishness that, that was going on. So we decided what we would do is we would rent a plane. We would hijack all these people who weren't talking to each other and they weren't playing nice. And we organized a plane trip to Minnesota. And in February, no less. Because the point was we had to get them together and keep them together, because without every one of them sort of working together on the problem, like we did when the first vision came up and we were in that magic place, that window where we got extraordinary things done. And I don't know if Mark Plass is still here. We were going to go to Wisconsin, but it wasn't cold enough. So, and we had to keep them inside. So, but what happened next? In 3 days. In 3 days. And what happened next was equally extraordinary. These folks started talking to each other again. And they didn't say, well, you can't have a pedestrian overpass. You can't have this, for example. You can't have that. We have to do this. We have to do that. And the conversation changed after eating meals with them and sitting and talking to them. The conversation changed from, okay, you can't do this, to say, okay, under what circumstances would this be an acceptable proposal to you? I mean, we started talking that way. I mean, there might be some things that were missing, but the conversation had started where there was none. And we were never going to make Brightline schedule. And the end of the story is even better. There was something, I don't know if you have the slide up, do you? It's the Minneapolis Accord. 8 agencies working together, trying to make sure they met a deadline. They had a mission of mobility. And what happened was out of that working group came this accord. But one agency was responsible for finance. One agency was responsible for logistics and design. The regional planning councils were responsible for public outreach. It was a working group that formed, no different than the working group between the Corps and the district when they decided how to figure out the schedule to fix the Everglades. I mean, that had to happen that way too. But there was a team that was put together and stayed together until, in fact, there was some, not just you as residents, but look, I like to visit West Palm too. I come here a lot for work. I come here a lot for play. And, I don't want to see the city sort of trapped where it's been for a little while, I think, in terms of moving forward on a lot of these big issues, especially related to Okeechobee. I don't know. It's not just because we have a new hotel and a new convention center. We've been talking about doing something with Okeechobee Boulevard for a long time. So I would challenge this group. I would challenge the NPO who has capacity to do something like this. The regional planning councils have capacity to do something like this, to sort of facilitate this team of people that don't break up. The DDS and the DDA here, the railroads here, Palm Trans here, the town of Palm Beach, with all those folks, pulling them together as a group, and again, not letting them leave the room until, in fact, they come up with a solution that addresses all this stuff, not just Okeechobee Boulevard. And I think we'll be a lot better off for it if we can get back to that sort of magic place where we were. And with that, those are my remarks. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Baker. Sorry you have to sort of peer over your shoulder to see the slides.
That's all right. I'll nod.
Okay,
Pull up
perfect.
the first slide. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
And thank you for remaining alert and still here as I stand as the last speaker between you and getting out of here. So I will try to be as quick as possible. They didn't necessarily give me a time limit on what I should, number one, how long I should speak, and they did tell me what I should speak on. And so this morning, one, I want to share with you, I've been with the county a long time. I'm not historic as George Webb, but I've been here for a minute. And our visitors, as well as our residents, love our green space. And they also love the lush landscaping that we have. Palm Beach County covers roughly about 2,500 square miles. We are larger than 3 or 4 states. We are home to 39 municipalities. That is a lot of home rule here in Palm Beach County. And everybody has their own idea on what should be done within their boundaries. And so we try to work as closely together and collaborate and move things forward. And I think former Mayor Graham, again, thank you for coming back, speaking to us, and you definitely was the impetus to pushing the city of West Palm forward. It is one of the cities that we're very, very proud of. And when we go to market Palm Beach County, they are definitely in the forefront, along with some of our other major municipalities. We've got a number of special districts, and no disrespect to any of our legislators, but we're having some challenge with them moving from Tallahassee as well, and so handcuffing us at times. Transit is a major element in addressing congestion here in Palm Beach County. This is a costly method to move. And so that is an issue as we move forward and we attempt to move people out of their cars into mass transit. We're going to need to think about the overall cost to us here in Palm Beach County. But on a positive note, this is the beginning of a new era for meetings, conferences, and conventions in Palm Beach County. As a result of the Hilton Hotel being built, joined to our convention center and opened for business, the convention center business has just definitely boomed. It was predicted that adding an adjoining hotel to the convention center would significantly improve the number of business meetings, conferences, and conventions. This prediction is coming to fruition. In fiscal year 16, that was our strongest financial year. We have had in our 13-year history of the center, and we project the trend continuing. We realized over 19,900 room nights in 2016, significantly up from the prior year. We also have booked over 67,000 future room nights in over 2016, as far out as 2022. This is, I mean, we're busy. We've got people knocking on our doors. We're having to choose who to bring in as far as room nights are concerned. We have direct spending to West Palm Beach, City Place, Clematis area, which we call the Convention Center District. It is estimated to exceed $25 million for these future room nights that we currently have on the books. In fiscal year 16, the largest attendance by event type was meetings, conferences, conventions, and trade shows. Total roughly about 45% of the attendance. There was gross revenue by event type, which also, this particular segment, made up 56% of the gross revenues. Rental revenue by event type, again, this segment made up 57% of our rental revenue. And events by category, this segment made up 63% of those events. So we're truly growing. And as we move forward, as you see, the actual room nights that are stated before, 19,000, almost 20,000 room nights, made up 44 events. Our definite room nights that have been booked for 2017, we're not even talking actual, we generated 32,000, which made up roughly about 61% increase over 16's actual room nights. We're also looking at our definite room nights for 18. And again, as you can see, as we grow our conventions and meetings, we are talking about more people and less events and higher revenue. So this particular segment is very, very important to us. We also have multi-year agreements. So they come and they fall in love with us and they come back. And so that, as residents here in Palm Beach County, we want to be kind to our tourists as they come in, because they are definitely having a positive fiscal impact to our community. We want to continue to hold conventions and meeting places here in Palm Beach County. A number of our clients are repeat. And so as you can look for 2017, Tony Robbins comes back every year. The dairy farmers have been returning. We've got the Orange Theory Fitness Day has been returning. And Trends, which is our largest room nights, they have been here 30 times over the last 8 years. A number of our clients love Palm Beach County. We work diligently to ensure a successful and memorable time for our guests. 18 also reflects the service and the atmosphere we have created and we're branding here in Palm Beach County. And this particular list also reflects a number of repeat customers. This year, in 17, we brought the Governor's Hurricane Conference here. They're scheduled to come back for the next 2 years, and we're talking to them about extending even further into the future. For the first time, we've been able to bring the Florida Association of Counties to Palm Beach County. This was an initiative that was initially started by former Commissioner Bert Aronson a long time ago. He was very annoyed that we were members of an organization that would not come to Palm Beach County. They didn't come because we didn't have enough hotel rooms for them. We now have enough hotel rooms with the adjoining convention center, and we're looking forward to adding more. As a result of the number of large events that have been coming to the convention center and anticipated growth in this industry, we constructed the garage, which you came in today. I hope you had a pleasant experience parking this morning. So you can see the various phases in which we brought the garage up. It was free this morning. It is not always free. So we were very, very special. No, we got to pay for it. And so we continue to move forward. We've increased our conventions, meetings, trade shows, consumer events, and food and beverage. We've increased hotel rooms. And I've talked to you about that. We roughly have, and I think Mr. Pescara stated it earlier, we've got roughly about 2,200 hotel rooms countywide in the pipeline. We are a place people want to come and to do business. And so we've also, I just met last week with another major hotel developer looking to come to Palm Beach County. And it is a flagship hotel. So we are continuing to build our tourism industry, and we know that we are a place that has a very diverse industries, various industries that people want to come to Palm Beach County. This is an excellent sign that we've got hotels interested in locating here, that visitor demand is on the rise. As a result of that, we anticipate the need to expand the convention center sometime in the near future. The bottom line is larger number of attendees at the convention center are frequenting City Place. So they must traverse Okeechobee in downtown West Palm Beach. This is driving a huge economic impact. At the end of the day, we want to protect our visitors. One fatal accident or a serious accident, the meeting planners will not encourage their people to visit us. So we have to be very, very conscious of this. But I'm not only interested in our visitors, I'm interested in our residents that have to cross Okeechobee as well. And I have had the pleasure of trying to do that myself on a number of occasions. This is a picture of, just recently, of some of our attendees from the Hurricane Conference crossing Okeechobee going to City Place. we can agree this is a very large number of people that are standing in the middle of Okeechobee waiting for the light to go across. The larger the crowds, the more frequent the pedestrian button will be utilized, even though my county engineer informed you, as well as myself, that the pedestrian system is now being handled automatically. So you don't necessarily have to push the button. This will cause even more interruption of our traffic flow. You heard about the trains that are coming. You've heard about our bridges that go up. You've heard about a large number of our pedestrians traversing Okeechobee north to south, and the increased traffic congestion. So we have we've got a serious issue as far as moving traffic when we talk about from Tamarind to the foot of the bridge. And so we must work together to resolve this issue. We don't have a choice. And so we encourage people to walk, we encourage them to bike, and to use some type of mass transit. These alternatives will have minimal impact on the reduction of traffic moving through here. There is little to no modification to be made to the bridges, trains, or our motorized traffic. This leaves pedestrian traffic, which we must account for. Pedestrian traffic could traverse over Okeechobee by way of pedestrian bridge or a tunnel under Okeechobee Boulevard. A tunnel would be much more costly than a crossover. So let's consider a pedestrian crossover. Here are a few examples that are simple to implement. And I think Juan shared with us some of them that he's seen around the world as he's traveled. And these are simple ones that we could somewhat consider and implement. And once you see them, you can address them so that you know you've arrived in downtown West Palm Beach. We could also dress them up a bit more. Of course, that comes with more dollars. And so those particular ones would definitely make the statement that you've arrived in downtown West Palm Beach. It is going to take a partnership for us to make this happen. And we here in Palm Beach County, we must make a partnership. And we must move forward with ensuring that our tourists, as well as our visitors to downtown, and our residents are safe, and that our businesses continue to thrive. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all of you. Considering what time it is, we're going to forego my questions for the panel, ask that any remaining panelists that are still here that would join us on the stage, and go directly into public question and answers. We've got 2 microphones that are set up. As we move into this, and as we ask the panelists to come back up to the stage, I do want to point out that the objective today is not to define or decide what solutions or palette of solutions will work, but understand that this conversation is beginning. We want to grow the toolbox, as we said before, and really encourage you to participate in the city's upcoming planning and design charrettes that are going to look specifically at the details of downtown and of Okeechobee Boulevard, and those will be, that charrette will be June 12th through the 15th.
I got to make a point of clarification. So there are 24,000 jobs in downtown West Palm Beach, and so I have been working on a project. I had some student doing some research, and I just took the number before actually investigating. I went and did check it with census data. So I do apologize for that, and I do admit that I was wrong in that. But the point is that our downtown is still half the size of Jacksonville and 1/3 the size of Columbus, and we still have a long way to go to think about jobs as a vision for the future. So I want to point